You are living inside an illusion, a comfortable, convenient, and invisible illusion. You wake up, you go to work, you earn a salary, and you see a number in your bank account. You believe that number belongs to you. You believe it represents stored value, a battery of energy that you can save for your future, for your children, for your safety. But history has a terrifying secret that central bankers and politicians will never tell you. That number in your bank account, it is not money. It is currency. And there's a fundamental difference. Money is a store of value. Currency is a tool of government. And like all tools, it has a lifespan. Every major reserve currency in the history of human civilization, from the Roman denarius to the French assignat to the Weimar mark, has followed the exact same biological life cycle. It is a six-stage path from birth to death. It is a mathematical inevitability. Most people live their entire lives without ever realizing this cycle exists because the cycle takes roughly 80 to 100 years to complete. It moves slower than a human life, but faster than a civilization. Here is the reality check. We are not at the beginning of this cycle. We are not in the middle. We are currently gasping for air at the very end of stage 4. The system is blinking red. The debt is mathematically unpayable. The inflation you feel at the grocery store is not a supply chain issue. It is the death rattle of a dying currency. But this time, the elites have learned from history. They know the crash is coming, and they have prepared a replacement. They are not going to let the system reset back to gold. They are ushering us into stage 5. Stage 5 is not a crash. Stage 5 is a cage. If you want to protect your wealth, you need to understand where we are, how we got here, and exactly what stage 5 looks like before it locks the door on you. To understand where we are going, we have to understand the mechanism of the trap. Why does this happen? Why can't we just keep using the dollar or the euro forever? It comes down to human nature and the physics of power. Governments, by definition, have an insatiable appetite for spending. Wars, welfare, infrastructure, bureaucracy, it all costs money. But governments produce nothing. They have no products to sell. To get money, they only have two options. Option A is to tax the citizens. This is honest, but it is politically painful. If you raise taxes too high, the people revolt. Option B is to print the money. This is dishonest, but it is politically easy. It is a hidden tax. When you print new money, you aren't creating value. You are stealing value from every existing dollar in circulation. Every empire eventually chooses option B. It is the path of least resistance. And once they start, they cannot stop. This addiction to easy money creates the 6 stages we are about to decode. Before we can understand the cycle, we have to unlearn a lie that is repeated in every classroom, every news report, and every bank in the world. The lie is that money and currency are the same thing. They are not. They are opposites. Money must fulfill 3 functions. It must be a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and, most importantly, a store of value. If you bury it today and dig it up in 100 years, it must still have purchasing power. Currency, on the other hand, only fulfills the first 2. It is a medium of exchange and a unit of account, but it is not a store of value. The US dollar, the euro, the yen, these are currencies. They are designed to leak. They are designed to lose value over time. Why? Because if money keeps its value, you might save it. You might become independent. But if money loses value, you are forced to spend it or invest it in the system. You are forced to keep running on the hamster wheel just to stay in the same place. Real money has to be physically scarce. It requires work to produce. This physical cost is the only thing that keeps governments honest. It is a leash on power. Every currency death cycle is simply the story of a society moving from money, which is scarce, to currency, which is infinite, and the chaos that follows. Let's begin at stage 1, sound money. This is the birth of the system. Historically, stage 1 almost always emerges from the ashes of a disaster. A war has just ended, or a previous hyperinflation has destroyed the society. The people are angry. They have lost everything. To restore order, the new leaders have no choice but to issue a currency that is backed by something real, something the government cannot print. For 5,000 years, that something has been gold and silver. In stage 1, The currency is merely a claim check. If you have a $20 bill, it is literally a receipt that entitles you to redeem $20 worth of gold from the bank vault. The paper itself is worthless. The value is in the metal it represents. This system creates a very specific type of economy, an economy based on savings and production. Because the government cannot print gold, it cannot spend more than it collects in taxes. If the government wants to fight a war, it has to have the gold to pay the soldiers. Because the money supply is fixed, but the economy is growing. More factories, more goods, more technology. Prices actually go down. This is a concept that sounds insane to modern ears. Deflationary growth. Today, economists tell you that deflation is bad. They tell you that if prices go down, the economy will collapse. That is gaslighting. In the late 19th century, under a gold standard, the United States saw the greatest economic expansion in human history, and during that entire time, prices for everyday goods fell. This creates a strong middle class. It creates a society where a father can support a family on a single income because his money works for him, not against him. Stage 1 is the peak of civilizational health, but it has a weakness. A gold standard puts a straitjacket on the state. It limits their ability to buy votes or wage war. Over time, a new generation of politicians rises up. They are ambitious. They want to spend. So they begin to whisper. They ask the dangerous question. What if we printed just a few more receipts than we have gold? Who would know? This is the beginning of the corruption. And then a catalyst arrives. Usually it is a war. In the face of a crisis, the government claims it needs flexibility. They ask the people to trust them. They ask to cut the leash. This leads us to stage 2, the severance. Stage 2 is the moment the fraud becomes official. It is the transition from trust in physics to trust in politicians. In the United States, the final nail in the coffin was hammered on August 15, 1971. President Richard Nixon went on television and announced he was temporarily suspending the convertibility of the U.S. dollar into gold. That word, temporarily, was the greatest lie of the 20th century. It has been over 50 years, and that window never reopened. At that exact moment, the U.S. dollar ceased to be a warehouse receipt. It became fiat. Fiat is Latin for let it be done. The money has value only because the government commands it. What happens immediately after stage 2 begins? At first, euphoria. The government can suddenly print money to pay for highways, hospitals, and subsidies without raising taxes. The economy booms. The stock market soars. It feels like we have cheated gravity. But beneath the surface, the rot begins. Since the money is no longer tied to reality, the supply of money begins to expand faster than the supply of goods. This is the birth of systemic inflation. And more importantly, this is when the financialization of the economy begins. Before stage 2, the richest people were those who built things, factories, railroads, oil. After stage 2, the richest people are those who move money around, bankers, hedge funds, traders. The economy shifts from production to speculation. Look at the data. Before 1971, as productivity went up, wages went up. The workers shared in the wealth. After 1971, productivity kept going up, but wages flattened out. Where did the money go? It was stolen by inflation. When the government prints new money, it doesn't get distributed equally. It enters the system through the big banks first. The elites get the new money and buy assets at yesterday's prices. By the time that money trickles down to you, prices have already risen. Stage 2 is a slow, silent robbery. You are working harder, but you can afford less. Eventually, the slow robbery isn't enough. The debt pile grows so big that normal inflation can't service it. The government needs more. The addiction deepens. This brings us to stage 3, the inflationary spiral. Stage 3 is when the system breaks and the government decides to fix it with duct tape and dynamite. This stage usually begins with a massive deflationary shock, like the 2008 financial crisis. In a sound money economy, the banks would have been allowed to fail, cleansing the system. But in a fiat system, the politicians cannot allow pain. So, they invent a new term to hide the crime, quantitative easing. Here is how quantitative easing works in plain English. The government spends more than it makes and issues debt bonds to cover the difference. When investors stop buying this debt because they are scared, the central bank steps in. They sit at a computer, create trillions of dollars out of thin air, and use that magic money to buy the government's bonds. It is a circular scam. The government is lending money to itself. From 2008 to 2020, we lived in stage 3. They told us it was temporary. They lied. Then came 2020. In the span of 24 months, the U.S. Federal Reserve printed 40% of all U.S. dollars that have ever existed in the history of the Republic. Let that sink in. 200 years of history matched in 2 years of panic. Stage 3 is the point of no return. It is the moment when the math breaks. The national debt becomes so large that the interest payments on the debt consume the entire tax revenue of the country. We're there right now. The U.S. government is now spending more on interest payments than it spends on the military. They are borrowing money just to pay the interest on the money they borrowed before. It is a Ponzi scheme. And like all Ponzi schemes, it requires an exponentially increasing amount of new money just to keep from collapsing. This creates the setup for the most terrifying phase of all. The phase where the psychology shifts. The phase where the people wake up. Stage 4 is where the theory ends and the nightmare begins. This is the stage known as the crack-up boom. It is the moment when the psychology of the population snaps. For decades, people trusted the currency. They saved in it. They accepted it. But in stage 4, that trust evaporates. People realize that the government has no plan to stop printing. They realize that the 2% inflation target is a lie. When this realization hits, it triggers a change in the velocity of money. In the early stages, people hoarded money because they thought it was valuable. In stage 4, they treat the currency like a hot potato. As soon as they get paid, they rush to get rid of it. They buy anything, cars, watches, land, detergent, canned food, anything that is real. They would rather hold a can of beans than a stack of cash, because the beans will hold their value, but the cash will not. This mass panic to spend causes hyperinflation. It's not just that there's too much money, it's that nobody wants to hold it. We saw this in Weimar Germany in 1923, where people brought wheelbarrows of cash to buy bread. We saw it in Zimbabwe. We're seeing it in Turkey and Argentina. But the dangerous arrogance of the West is the belief that it can't happen here. We think because the dollar and the euro are reserve currencies, they are immune to the laws of mathematics. They are not. Rome thought the same thing. When you dilute the currency to infinity, the value goes to zero. In stage 4, the financial system becomes extremely volatile. We see massive crashes followed by massive melt-ups. Banks begin to fail. The government steps in with bailouts and guarantees, which is just code for more printing. But here is the twist. In the past, when a currency hit stage 4 and died, the system would naturally reset back to stage 1. The currency would collapse, chaos would ensue, and eventually, a new hard money standard, usually gold, would emerge to restore order. But we live in the 21st century. The technology of control has evolved. The elites, the central bankers, the technocrats, they know the fiat system is dying. They have known it for years. They are not panicking. They are preparing. They do not want to return to stage 1. They do not want to go back to gold, because gold limits their power. They cannot print gold. So, they have engineered a new solution. A solution that keeps the power in their hands, but removes the freedom from yours. They are building a bridge from the collapsing stage forward directly into a dystopian stage 5. Stage 5 is the Central Bank Digital Currency, or CBDC. You must understand this difference carefully. A CBDC is not just digital money. You already use digital money. When you swipe your credit card or use PayPal, that is digital. But those are digital representations of dollars held in a commercial bank. A CBDC is fundamentally different. It is a direct liability of the central bank. It is programmable money. In stage 5, as the banks fail and inflation rages, the government will offer you a solution. They will introduce the digital dollar as the safe haven. They will say it is safe, instant, and convenient. They will likely offer stimulus credits deposited directly into your digital wallet to help you cope with the crashing economy. It will sound enticing. and it will be the end of human liberty as we know it. Why? Because CBDCs change the definition of ownership. First, they introduce expiry dates. In a fiat system, inflation slowly eats your savings. In a CBDC system, the government can simply program your money to expire. They can say, you must spend this stimulus within 30 days, or it vanishes. This forces you to spend, artificially propping up the economy, and prevents you from ever building generational wealth. You become a permanent consumer. Second, they introduce negative interest rates. Right now, if the bank charges you to hold your money, you can pull your cash out and hide it under your mattress. In stage 5, cash is banned. There is no mattress. If the economy slows down, they can simply deduct 1% from every digital wallet in the country, instantly. You have no exit. Third, and most terrifying, is granular control. CBDCs are programmable. They can control what you buy. Imagine trying to buy a plane ticket, and the transaction is declined because you have already reached your carbon footprint limit for the month. Imagine trying to buy meat, and being told you have exceeded your ration. Imagine donating to a political cause the government dislikes, and having your entire wallet frozen. This is not science fiction. This is already happening in China with the digital yuan. It is the blueprint. The technology allows for total surveillance of every single cent you earn and spend. It gives the state the power to turn off your ability to survive with the flick of a switch. Stage 5 is the ultimate goal of the current financial order. It solves the problem of debt by allowing the state to manipulate the currency unit at will, without the messiness of bank runs. It is a sterile, digital prison. Most people will walk into stage 5 willingly. They will be scared by the crash of the fiat system, and they will run into the arms of the CBDC because it promises stability. They will trade their freedom for safety, and they will end up with neither. But there is a stage 6, a divergence, a split in the timeline. Because while the central bankers are building their digital cage, a parallel system has emerged. For the first time in history, the people have an option that is not gold and not fiat. Stage 6 is the return to reality. It is the rejection of the illusion. Throughout history, stage 6 was always a return to gold. When the paper burned, the gold remained. And gold will certainly play a massive role in the coming years. Central banks are currently buying gold at the fastest pace in 50 years. They are hedging their own bets. But in the digital age, we have something faster, harder, and more portable than gold. We have Bitcoin. Put your biases aside. Forget the memes. Look at the mechanics. Bitcoin is the anti-CBDC. CBDC is centralized. Bitcoin is decentralized. CBDC is inflationary with an unlimited supply. Bitcoin is disinflationary with a fixed supply of 21 million. CBDC is permissioned, meaning the government allows you to spend. Bitcoin is permissionless, meaning no one can stop you. Stage 6 is the battle between state money and math money. We are moving toward a bifurcated world, a dual economy. On one side, you will have the CBDC system, highly regulated, surveilled, low growth, where the population is kept on a subsistence drip of universal basic income. This is the walled garden. On the other side, you will have the sovereign economy. This will be built on decentralized protocols, sound money like gold and Bitcoin, and private trade. This economy will be volatile, yes, but it will be free. It will be where innovation happens. It will be where true wealth is preserved. The transition from stage 4 to stage 5 is inevitable. The debt dictates it. The system must reset. But your participation in stage 5 is optional. We are standing on the edge of the cliff. The fiat currency, the dollar in your pocket, is in its final years. The symptoms are everywhere. The debt ceiling debates, the bank failures, the erratic inflation. These are not glitches. They are the terminal symptoms of a stage 4 cancer. The system is preparing the cage. They are laying the cables, writing the code, and passing the laws. But the door is not locked yet. You still have time to position yourself. You still have time to trade your dying paper currency for real assets, for gold, for Bitcoin, for land, for business equity, for skills that AI cannot replace. The currency death cycle is a monster that eats the unprepared. But for those who see the pattern, it is the greatest opportunity for wealth transfer in human history. Rome fell. Weimar fell. The dollar will fall. The future belongs to those who hold the blueprint. Welcome to Future Script.